Hello everyone, I'm Chand Mazumdar. I'm part of the Amazon Global Selling team. I'd like to welcome you all to the launch of Amazon's Exports Digest 2022. This publication presents an overview of Amazon's efforts in boosting exports from India using e-commerce. Launched in 2015, Amazon's e-commerce exports program, Global Selling, is focused on enabling Indian businesses to leverage Amazon's technology and logistics infrastructure to start or expand their exports business by serving customers across the world. I'm really excited to have with us today Mr. Amit Agarwal, Senior VP India and Emerging Markets at Amazon, and Mr. Abhijit Kamra, Director Global Trade at Amazon India. To get the event going, I would request Amit to share a perspective on how e-commerce is helping lower the entry barrier for lakhs of Indian businesses to leverage the exports opportunity.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here with us. Hope everyone is safe and well. Uh, for decades now, exports have played such a critical role in driving India's economic growth. India has grown at a rapid rate when exports have grown. So, exports continue to be a critical priority for the government and the industry. A self reliant India will be premised on boosting domestic manufacturing and creating quality products for exports that customers across the globe love. And this is bound to create job creation and sustain economic growth. Now, the government has set an ambitious target of achieving $400 billion in annual merchandise exports. And for the first time in history, India breached this target. That's pretty amazing. India's merchandise exports touched a record 418 billion in 2021-22. And I would like to congratulate the government on this landmark achievement. The government's unwavering commitment towards exports has been very encouraging. As we look forward, we strongly believe that embracing technology and e-commerce will be integral to further unlocking India's export potential, helping us realize the vision of being a $1 trillion, $5 trillion economy. The role that Amazon is playing in this is very humbling to us. Now, every day at Amazon, we see how technology and e-commerce are helping lower the entry barrier for lakhs of MSMEs and entrepreneurs to expand their horizons, serve customers across the world, and not just India, but globally. Our e-commerce exports program, Global Selling, was launched in 2015. It has grown very quickly to over 1 lakh exporters, including marquee Indian businesses, as well as digital-first brands. Importantly, the number of new sellers joining the program has doubled over the last couple of years. The program is helping take made in India products global at massive scale. It's enabling millions of customers worldwide discover and enjoy Indian products from bed linens, STEM toys, wellness products, and even daily consumption products like soaps, shampoos, and more. It's humbling to see thousands of first generation entrepreneurs embrace technology and create robust global businesses. Let me give you an example. Abhishek Midda, a Jaipur-based college student, launched a tapestry business in 2012 from the basement of his house. He was amongst the first Indian exporters from India to join Amazon Global Selling. With his business flourishing, Abhishek set up and exports and has now ventured into other categories like home decor and leather goods. Despite the challenges over the last couple of years, and exports has grown 3 times year over year while serving customers across USA, Canada, and Europe. What strikes me most about Abhishek isn't just the success that he's already driving, but also his optimism to grow. He plans to expand operations to more global markets and double the size of his 40-member team by the end of 2022. At Amazon, we are proud of the work we are doing in empowering such enterprises where the beneficiary of success is not just the business, but an entire community. These MSMEs are the backbone of our economy, and by digitally enabling them to succeed, we contribute towards job creation and boosting exports that will power the inclusive economic growth of the country. In the years to come, exports will play a crucial role in India's economic growth, and e-commerce will continue to provide an easy and rapidly scalable route for Indian MSMEs to build global brands and create employment opportunities in the ecosystem. A laser sharp focus on empowering Indian MSMEs to leverage e-commerce and drive exports can help us contribute to the Honorable Prime Minister's vision of an Atmanirbhar Bharat and support the rise of global brands from India. At our end, We're super excited by the momentum Amazon Global Selling is witnessing. Now, the exporters on our program are on track to surpass $5 billion in cumulative exports. What's even more exciting is that the program took about 3 years to enable the first $1 billion in exports, while the last $2 billion have come in just 17 months. In January 2020, we're taking a pledge to enable 10 billion in cumulative exports from India by 2025 through our program of global selling. Excited by the momentum in the businesses joining the global selling program, and the growing demand for made in India products across the world, I'm super excited to announce that we are doubling down and raising our pledge to enable $20 billion in cumulative exports by 2025. We are excited to build a strong foundation for MSMEs to realize their export potential, help them become globally competitive, and contribute towards Honorable Prime Minister's vision for making India an exports powerhouse. Thank you, and it's still day one.
Thank you, Amit. Yes, indeed, there is unlimited opportunity for Indian exporters to expand globally by embracing digitization and e-commerce and contribute to India becoming a global exports hub. I would now request Abhijit Kamra to talk about key highlights of the Exports Digest 2022.
Thank you, Chand. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for the launch of Amazon's Export Digest 2022. I'll begin by saying that conventionally, exports has been driven by big B2B businesses that had the scale and network to power global operations reach customers across the world. However, e-commerce and technology adoption have helped expand the opportunity to make it more inclusive for businesses of all sizes and locations in India that they are today selling to customers globally. Over 1 lakh such businesses from across our country are today part of Amazon Global Selling. They're leveraging Amazon's global presence, our investments in technology and infrastructure to build robust global businesses and create truly global brands from India. The Exports Digest 2022 brings together some of these key highlights on the kind of growth Amazon Global Selling has been able to enable for exporters across India. For example, more than 1 lakh Indian exporters now from the length and breadth of the country are participating in this exports phenomenon. Interestingly, exports isn't just a big city phenomenon. Today we have home entrepreneurs, startups, traditional businesses, and more from tier 2 and 3 cities join the program. The top cities from where we see maximum sellers joining our exports program include Delhi, Jaipur, Udaipur, Lucknow in the north, Coimbatore, Trichy, and Mysore in the south, Kolkata, Guwahati, and Siliguri in the east, and Indore, Mumbai, Ahmedabad in the west. So if you see entrepreneurs from across different parts of the country are participating in this phenomenon. They're able to list their products on Amazon's 18 international markets and serve millions of customers in over 200 countries across the world. We're also witnessing growth for made in India products worldwide, stretching from everything from Banarasi sarees to STEM toys. Some of the top selling product categories through our e-commerce exports program include textiles, leather, beauty, Ayurvedic supplements, among others. In fact, in 2021, we've seen an 82% growth in apparel category being exported from India. The toys category, which is also seeing a lot of traction, is growing rapidly at over 55%. And we have homemade brands like Skillmatics, ImagineMade, Play Shifu, and others who are doing remarkably well, and customers across the world are loving these products. Jewelry category, which has always done well from India, continues to grow at a robust 47%. And home products, which has been a mainstay of exports, is growing at 30%. The various global sale events and shopping seasons across the world continue to drive periodic spikes for Indian businesses. For example, during the Black Friday Cyber Monday sale in 2021, Indian exporters on Amazon Global Selling witnessed nearly a 2x surge in demand across North America, Europe, Middle East, and North Africa, with nearly 500 exporters achieving a sale of landmark more than $100,000. As we look ahead, I truly believe that the next phase of growth in exports will be driven by the power of internet, increased technology adoption by Indian businesses, and the use of technologies like artificial intelligence and machine learning. A recent NASSCOM study forecasts the opportunity to be over $125 billion of Indian exports through e-commerce by 2030. This indicates the huge opportunity available to Indian businesses to build and grow exports businesses via e-commerce. At our end, we will continue to work closely with the government and all key stakeholders to make exports easier and inclusive for MSMEs of all sizes and from across the length and breadth of our country. This will help truly establish brand India across the world. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Abhijit, for such interesting updates and anecdotes. Before we conclude this section of the event today, let's launch the Amazon Exposed Digest 2022. With this, we come to the end of this section of our program. Thank Amit and Abhijit for joining us today. For everyone watching us online, please stay tuned. Much more coming your way. Now we'll head towards the next section of Exposed Digest 2022 launch. I'm delighted to bring you two exciting sessions. First session is the fireside chat focused on enabling MSME expos through e-commerce. And the second one is the Global Seller Spotlight with Bishwajita Mishra, Business Head, Sales and Account Management, Amazon Global Selling India. For the first session, I'm excited to introduce our distinguished guest, Dr. Harshavardhana Singh, former Deputy Director General, World Trade Organization. Dr. Singh has decades of extensive international and national experience on trade and investment matters. In India, Dr. Singh also served as economic advisor and then secretary of the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. In addition to this, he is also a visiting faculty at research institutes on trade and regulation. A very warm welcome to you, Dr. Singh.
Thank you. Thank you. A good day to you.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. So excited to have you here. The first question for you, Dr. Singh, we'd love to understand. So for the first time in history, India has breached the 400 billion USD mark in annual merchandise exports in financial year 2021-22. What should India as a nation continue to do, and how can we build further? What role does e-commerce and technology adoption play in this?
Thank you. Thank you. That's a very good starting point. First, we have to see why or what resulted in this boom. And second, we have to see what are the factors which are likely to continue and what can increase the opportunities further. So most people say that, and incidentally, it's not just 4,000 billion which has been breached. Since 2011, India's share in world merchandise trade was stuck between 1.6% and 1.7%. For the first time, we have breached 1.8%. So that's a very remarkable push, something we had not achieved for a very long time in terms of relative terms, not just absolute terms of 400 billion. The factors which people talk about include the fact that after COVID, there was pent-up demand, so the absolute imports went up. There was a commodity price boom because of the problems in supply chain, etc. And also, there were problems in China, both due to COVID, but also due to some issues with their power supply. But there's one factor which basically most analysts miss out on, which is the change in approach of the government of India in terms of policy. If you see, the government of India has made a major effort not only to improve operational context and reduce costs as a consequence, but also to refocus its objectives to facilitation of exports, which means enabling them, and also coordinating in a manner with the entire supply chain of policy, linking up both the key institutions, organizations, ministries, departments within India, and also our representatives abroad. So this change in approach, this effort, which has also resulted in a reconfiguration of the manner in which Department of Commerce is organized. This is something which, in my view, plays a very important role, because industry tries to export every year, but a lot of focus is on ease of doing business or improving cost of operations, because policy barriers, so-called policy barriers, reduce the potential which can be achieved. That is changing in a major way, together with an approach which is much more positive now. So the pent-up demand will stabilize, commodity prices will stabilize, China will come back, but this aspect is a fundamental change in the operational context, and it is in the hands of the government. The second aspect which the government has emphasized for a long time, but has focused much more on now, is how do we achieve the potential exports which are possible from the country. In that context, I think the government has realized the huge gap between the actual exports through e-commerce and the potential exports. For example, NASSCOM has estimated that the online exports, online-led exports from India are likely to increase by 45 times the current level by 2030. I mean, that's a huge potential. So e-commerce exports will play a role, need to play a role. And in the new approach, the government has recognized this, and it is working with some kind of not just policy changes, but institutional changes.
That is fascinating, Dr. Singh. I'd like to hear and to understand, and just how we can also build and basically just like drive this momentum. Thank you so much for the insights. So the next question is, So I think you already touched upon it, but this will just further clarify it. How do you think the ecosystem is going to evolve in the coming years? And what are the top three things that can be done to provide impetus to exports and e-commerce exports?
See, you have talked about exports and e-commerce. I will stick to exports and e-commerce exports because e-commerce is a much larger issue and domestic e-commerce is different from e-commerce export. The distinction between exports per se and e-commerce exports lies in the manner in which the exports through e-commerce take place. There is a major overlap. Sometimes the entire transaction is on through online transactions. Services are an important example of this. The other times when goods exports are involved, the ordering, the supply chain, etc., might be a combination. Not might. In fact, it always is a combination of online plus physical. So whatever you do to ease the physical and enable physical remains important. But there are additional factors which are linked up with online. The second thing, and this is a fact which I was fascinated by research about in the last 2 decades, how it showed that how online possibilities of exports have created multinational small and medium enterprises because their reach of the potential marketplace is much more. But at the same time, while their reach has increased, their capabilities, their knowledge, their support systems, and also how to reduce the risks, how to increase their credibility, these systems are much larger in significance for the smaller players. So, and the government actually is working on all this. The interesting thing is that while we are talking, on the ground, policy changes are being thought of, being made, are in the pipeline. The issue is, as you rightly pointed out, what are the key factors to look at? Because when you make a list of policy, you can make a list of 100 concerns, but the largest impact comes from the key priority areas. And the government is working on multiple grounds. I've made a list. There are so many things it's doing. I'll just read a few things, like growing internet connectivity, which is obvious, access to international and indigenous payment platforms, warehousing and logistic infrastructure. You can see that this involves both the normal trade as well as it feeds into the e-commerce trade. Specific forms for regulatory things like customs related, specific forms for e-commerce, because the issues might be different. The foreign post office, which deal with the transaction, with the products which have to be sent, they have a different mechanism for dealing with those products. How to improve the timing of that, how to improve the reach to these. So they are increasing the number of foreign post office. The value limit for e-commerce courier shipments, how to facilitate that. Digital processing, and this is a generic thing. This is a generic effort of the government to digitize processes. But in that context, given the specific nature of e-commerce, you have to enable it in a different way. For example, one survey found that the expectation of delivery by customers of the products which they have ordered, whether they order in domestic domains or international domains, are not very different. While the distance is huge, the aspects involved in regulation are multiple more in exports. So how to, weave the system in such a way that the market expectations are actually met and the potential is realized. Similarly, enabling a seamless experience, reducing the number of mandatory requirements, using risk-based assessment. All these are part of the game in conventional things. So what are the key areas? The key areas relate to, in my perspective, whatever affects time taken. That's one priority area. So I'm now looking at objectives of policy rather than what needs to fulfill or achieve that policy. There may be three things, but those which really reduce the time taken in the transaction, that's very important. Whatever reduces the burden of cost and the burden of a revenue decline, because international trade has much larger risk factor. And in any transaction of e-commerce, returns are quite a few. And it's not only that this takes place in India, it is world over. You go to a country like Bhutan, this is an issue. You go to US, this is an issue. So how do you create systems which reduce costs? So I've already, some of the examples I gave of policy matters, reduce costs. But some actually, if the manner in which you treat unsold products, those products which are returned, and it's not just in e-commerce, in physical goods also, like gems and jewelry, etc. This is a major issue. How does regulation treat that? Can some factors be taken into account in such a way that the perceived risk by the regulator is addressed through mechanisms or systems which reduce the burden on the entity taking part in this transaction, namely the exporter? So it's a combination: reduce time, reduce cost burden, increase the revenue flow, or reduce the risk. So these are very important, and two, three steps are needed in each of these objectives. But a very large initiative has to be taken to increase the information and training base. Because I talked about the small and medium enterprises. They are least informed amongst the whole panoply of firms which are involved. And they have the largest potential for growth once they get involved. So the bang for the buck is much larger. And this can take place through various mechanisms, which can be sorted out. But there are mechanisms which are linked to government training institutions or export promotion councils, or they could be even the industry associations. But they have to be done in a coordinated manner so that the effort which is put in has the largest impact. So these are the three areas. So one is time taken, one is information and training, and one is reduction on cost and increase in potential revenue, which might be locked up due to regulation.
Dr. Singh, thank you so much. That's like, just like makes me think that how much there is to be done, right? Like we have just started like scratching the surface. So in Amazon, we say like we're just getting started. We always say we're always at day one. So just like makes me think that we literally are like day one. There's so much to do. Thank you so much, Dr. Singh.
May I just say, we are actually not at day one, but we should behave as if we are at day one.
Absolutely.
And try and identify key priorities.
Right.
Always remember there are 10 possible things to do, but 3 of them will have the largest impact.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're coming to the end of our discussion, Dr. Singh. I mean, you have already touched it. MSMEs are the backbone of our economy, and we need to do everything possible to empower them. Just, I mean, you already mentioned it, just last, like very maybe getting into a little bit of deeper grounds, just would like to understand, how do you think we can provide equitable access to e-commerce and technology for them to prosper?
When you say equitable, you're touching upon a very important issue. When you look at, and this is true in society in general, but definitely it is reflected in the ability to achieve one's potential in e-commerce exports. There is a whole range of firms, large firms, medium large firms, medium firms, small and micro. The information base is very different. So the information and training, which I talked about, the ability to deal with regulatory requirements is very different. So that's why I mentioned about creating systems which minimize the burden which is involved. The ability to withstand changes in revenue and cost is very different. So all the factors which I've talked about, the problems due to them are much larger in the small and medium. Medium, less so than small, but still significant. So there are multiple ways in which online participation in trade facilitates. There are various international organizations which have developed tools where you can actually carry out online exhibitions, 3D kind of exhibitions. So the training which takes place should take account of the existing tools. And there is a small number of organizations which one could start from. The government interacts with them, but to identify key tools. Some of these tools are specific to agriculture. Some of these tools are specific to exhibitions. Some of these tools are specific to linking up with partnerships abroad, etc. So in the supply chain, which part of the supply chain can be facilitated through online participation? In the supply chain, whichever part needs more work, what part of the policy chain, because linked to achieving, the government focuses a lot on global value chains. That's a part of the supply chain concept. So which policies are the key ones which will enable a larger impact? Similarly, what are the existing institutions where the current work can just be tweaked a little bit to have a large impact in terms of training, in terms of information? You find it very difficult to have an export promotion council for e-commerce per se, because the number of exporters are so large. So how do you enable the institutions, or which kind of combination of institutions do you put in place which are able to support the export initiative? What are one of the biggest kind of factors which makes it relevant for accessing larger markets is credibility of the product. So how there are mechanisms now, existing platforms, for example. You are one of them, but you are not the only one. So, but the platforms serve a purpose. They provide logistic support. They provide a possibility of quality check, a first-time check. They have the knowledge of different markets. If something along those lines could be consolidated so that the links with platforms can become much more structured, oriented towards addressing the problems of the exporters. And maybe there could be groups of success cases. I know of success cases on Amazon, on other platforms. If some of these could be put together as inspiration or sources of knowledge or answering frequently asked questions. So something which actually improves information, shows the potential, identifies the avenues and ropes to follow. That aspect, plus, of course, the three key areas which I talked about: time taken, cost and reduction, revenue augmentation, combined with, this is the third aspect I was talking about, information and training. But training comes in many ways. Training in a training context is different. Training, learning about problems encountered when actually conducting business and getting solutions is very different. So we should look at possibilities of these success cases and interaction with those groups, plus platforms could help. And also we should look at how other competing nations of India have addressed issues. You know, APEC is a very good example of a group of countries which exchange experiences, and through that have actually reduced their cost of operations and increased their competitiveness and market reach. Something like that would be very, very good. And the starting point has to be those who miss it the most, the small and medium. So those are the kind of thoughts which I want to share with you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Singh. It would have been fascinating to hear more, but with this, we have come to the end of this engaging chat with you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you. And wish this whole objective of increasing exports through online transactions great success. And India has great potential, as I talked about.
Thank you so much, Dr. Singh.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I would also like to thank everyone who's logged in to be a part of this discussion. Stay tuned for our next session on celebrating the inspiring journey of exporters from India.
Thank you, Chand and Dr. Singh, for such an insightful discussion. Hello, everyone. I'm Biswajita, and I'm part of Amazon Global Selling team in India. Welcome to the launch of Amazon Exports Digest 2022. It's a privilege to bring you an exciting seller spotlight session to celebrate the inspiring journey of Indian brands going global. Our e-commerce exports program, Amazon Global Selling, was launched in 2015 with a few hundred sellers, and since then, we are proud to have over 1 lakh exporters, including marquee Indian businesses, as well as digital-first brands associated with us. To discuss more about the e-commerce exports opportunity and share their own experiences, I'm excited to introduce dynamic entrepreneurs amongst us. First, I would like to invite Deepak Mehrotra, founder of California Design Den, a leading bedding brand focused on sustainable and natural products for customers around the world. Our second speaker is Dhwanil Seth, founder of Skillmatics, a popular D2C brand from India that develops innovative educational products and games that build core skills in children through systematic play. Welcome, both of you. Let's dive straight into the questions we have for you today. My first question is to Deepak. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey? What were the key factors for you to launch a D2C brand via e-commerce exports, and how has that benefited your exports business?
Sure. Thank you, Biswajita. It's a pleasure to be, on this. And we started as a textile manufacturer sometime in 2006. I started a bed linen factory with my brother, and we were making bed sheets, bed linen for top retailers in North America. So by North America, I mean US, Canada. We used to make bedding under their brand, under their specs. And we continued to do that. We continued to grow. Business was good. Sometime in 2015, 2016, we started to feel that, the e-commerce, the internet space was growing a lot, especially in North America. And we said, what if we also launch our own brand? We also, sell our sheets online directly to consumers. But, that was easier said and done because, you need so many things to launch a brand in US And from warehousing to how we'll get the customer, how will we advertise. So there were a lot of questions, and it didn't really happen till 2017. And that's when we were contacted by the Amazon global sales team. And, with their support, we were able to launch California Design Den, our brand name, in US on Amazon. And we started with some of our top products, products that were sold in every retail store here. And, since 2017, we expanded our products, more bed sheets, some other bedding products are now also made in India. They're not made in our factory, some of the products, but most of the products are made in our factory. And sometime, I would say 2 years back, 1.5 years back, we also expanded into other, geographies. When I say geographies, means Amazon Canada or Amazon UK, Amazon Germany. We launched Japan last quarter. So we are able to quickly expand our brand into other geographies and reach more customers. So it's been a very, very exciting journey for us. It has changed the way we do business. Now that we are selling directly to consumers, paying more attention to quality, we are kind of in a very happy place versus just, waiting for retailer orders.
Thank you so much, Deepak, for taking us through your amazing journey. And yes, this is one of the most successful brands that we have from India. I'll move on to Dhwanil now. Dhwanil, your brand has been one of the top sellers in toys category in the US marketplace. So first of all, how does that feel? And tell us a little bit about your journey as a digital-first global brand.
Firstly, thank you for having us here, Biswajita. It's very nice to be here on this platform. To answer your question, I think it feels great to be one of the top ranked products in our category. It's definitely fulfilling to know that they are like a completely Indian designed, manufactured product is doing so well in a very competitive global market. And historically in a category where India has negligible sort of presence globally, and it's great to see that changing. In terms of our journey, I used to work in the US and Canada in consulting, and specifically around consumer businesses, brands, and retail. And I think what really struck me, this was again around 2015, 16, was that one, there was no global brands from India in any category, right, that I could see, right. It was quite stark, and as Deepak mentioned earlier, things were changing around then, and it was quite clear that the world was getting much flatter, and one could actually imagine selling directly to consumers online. I was a lot younger and way more naive, so I just assumed that I would be able to do this. So I, quit my consulting job, moved back to India, and then identified, educational products as a category where one could build a global brand. I felt India historically has been extremely strong when it comes to education. We have a very strong base of teachers. We had good design, we had good printing and production facilities. And so I felt one could build a brand there. Little did I know how difficult it would actually be. We started out, initially doing international trade fairs, almost the old way of trying to go global now. And, I faced tremendous rejection because we were a bunch of young Indians trying in an industry that again had very little to no Indian presence, and we were trying to be the brand, and obviously tried that and we had some moderate success, but people just wouldn't really take us seriously despite us believing that consumers would love our product, because that's what we were seeing. But around that time, it was around 2017, 18, similar sort of time frame. we're obviously selling in India and we're doing quite well. And Amazon, approached us with this opportunity. And, I think our companies, our brand is Schematics, but our company is called Grasper Global because like going global was the entire vision with which we started the business. We naturally leaped on it. And then, I think the sort of support that we got in, figuring out some of the initial issues around logistics and fulfillment and, just being able to learn how to communicate and market to like an international audience was very instrumental early on. Obviously, since then, the brand has grown tremendously. We now are in the US, of course, highly ranked in our categories on Amazon, but it is the success on Amazon enabled us to actually take the brand to like Walmart and Target and retailers as well. And so, all those people who didn't sort of take us seriously, suddenly when you have consumer validation, things sort of turn quite dramatically. It's definitely been a wonderful journey, and we're just hopefully just getting started.
Thank you, Dhwanil, for taking us through your inspiring journey. My next question is going to be to Deepak. In your view, what kind of opportunities exist for Indian exporters today in the global markets, and how can an exporter leverage such opportunities?
Sure. As Dhwanil was saying, and when they started to make toys, they kind of dig deeper into core competence of teachers and great education system in India and the diligence of it. Similarly, I feel that there are many industries where India already has a lot of core competence, right? So if we look at, textiles, of course, is easy, but even garments or, handicrafts, carpets, I don't think, any country in the world can beat, carpets, whether in quality or range or price that come from India. So like this, there are so many categories where India has a lot of core strengths. And now what has happened is, it is not that all the customers have same taste, but, overall, it is definitely becoming, flatter. So there are a lot of, with social media, there are a lot of things that go around so quickly that the best rises up to the top. So there is a lot of this opportunity, not to talk politics, but also geopolitically, I think India is in a very good position for made in India versus, let's say, other countries, which have been dominant till now. So that also is an advantage. And then, like Amazon provides this platform, the manufacturers or sellers can directly sell to the consumer. This, I think, is tremendous because, like earlier, if you wanted to export, you will go to a trade show, you will meet retailers, you will meet wholesalers, what we call middlemen, right? Because end of the day, if you're making the product, it's your brand or you're making a product, you want to sell to the customer who's going to use it. So now in the middle is this retailer who wants the margin, who's going to tell you reduce more price, n number of things. But now you can sell directly to consumer. Platforms like Amazon make it very easy because you can, literally list your product in a day. You can send the product to Amazon's warehouses. Amazon does all the shipping, any returns they handle, any customer service they handle. So you just focus on the quality of the product, your price, how you tell the story. So I think this is a great opportunity. Now, it's not easy, but what is easy? I mean, if you, let's say, want to open a clothing store, on a main street in, I don't know, Karol Bagh or, in Mumbai on Linking Road, that's not easy. I mean, you need to get customers, you need to have good product, your quality should be good. If a customer has a problem, A, you need to look how to improve that quality, and B, immediately service the customer. So all the fundamentals are same. I think one of the things that people who are looking to expand globally directly to consumers should remember, this is not a different game. It is same business 101. In fact, if you stick to the basics of doing good business, like you will run your own store, like a physical store, um, then you'll have success. I think one of the things we have learned over 4 or 5 years is that we have had more success when we stick to the basics. We just listen to the customer. If the customer doesn't like a quality, we don't say, oh, hum to sabse achhi quality banate hain, how can we be bad? No, there is a problem. If a customer is saying it, that means there is a problem. We need to improve it. We need to solve it. Can we solve 100%? Probably not, but we can keep trying. So things like these are important, and just expanding the customer base, value-added products, you definitely get a better price. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for Indian manufacturers, Indian sellers, Indian entrepreneurs like Dhavnil here, who's able to build a brand and go to the customer, tell the story. So it's exciting times.
Thanks, Deepak. Dhwanil, what were the challenges you faced to scale an Indian brand in global markets, and how did you overcome them?
So of course, I mean, nothing is easy, right? I think that's there's always going to be challenges. I think we learned a lot more from what was not working than what was working, in terms of being able to course correct very quickly. So for example, I think one of the things that people should one of the earliest lessons I learned was that the consumer in, say, the markets that we sell in, whether that's the US or the UK, is very different than the consumer in India. And I feel like most people will approach it similar to what they're used to in their home market. And I think that is probably the most important challenge that one has to and the earlier you understand that difference, it will change your entire approach to the business. And I can give you a couple of examples. Like one, in India, it's a far more price driven market. While of course America is also price driven, but the point is that there the emphasis on quality is significantly higher. And if you actually are able to deliver a quality product, people are willing to pay a premium or a good price for your product, right? And so sort of understanding that aspect and saying that, look, I need to understand what the US consumer values, and this applies in any category, right? Engineering a product to that consumer and that market behavior. And when I say product, I'm talking about everything, whether it's price, whether it's the size. I can give you a very simple example, just something everyone will relate to. In India, people typically like, say games that are big boxes, because when they go gift it, they like the box to be large, right? I mean, it's a very cultural thing. Whereas in the US, the customers, despite having significantly larger homes, prefer things that are compact and efficient. And, so when we started, we started getting feedbacks in these such ridiculously large products, right? And in fact, it's a secondary benefit that, being smaller helps you tremendously in economics from a shipping and logistics perspective. But that's a very simple example of how you need to, really rethink as you go global. I would assume that most people who go global will always start in India and then try and take it abroad. So I think that was one lesson. I think the second challenge was, to try and think like a brand and not like a sort of seller. America is a very marketing forward country, and how you not only position the benefits of the product, but how do you position your brand? How do you talk about what does your brand stand for? What kind of products do you make? That becomes very important. And Amazon enables this. There's like a brand store. There's A+ content on your page. Paying attention to these details early on were again things that we didn't realize as much. How important they were early on, and it was some of these things that we realized we were not doing well, and then when we started doing well, we found that things started to get a lot better. In terms of operational challenges, Viswajit, I wouldn't look. There are going to be complexities like in any business, but let me put it this way: I don't think there has been a simpler time in history for someone from India to dream of selling and building a global brand on the back of, say, a platform like Amazon Global Sales. With the support, the kind of vendor network that is there. Also, as you mentioned, now you have 1 lakh sellers. So a lot of the enabling environment is also built, whether it's, in terms of getting customs, clearance, operations. So while there are, speeding issues and challenges, I would say that there is a great support network to overcome most of them. I don't think those would be, those would be challenges that aren't not able to be overcome. But yeah, I think in the early days, I think the biggest challenge was just switching mindset and trying to like operate as a US first company was probably the biggest challenge that we had to make internally at Skillmatics.
Thanks, Dwanil. Coming to the end of our discussion, let's do a quick rapid fire. I'm going to ask both of you the same question. So let's start with Deepak. What will be the top 3 things you would want to tell entrepreneurs and business owners in the audience today who aspire to build big global brands?
Okay, that's a good one. I'll give some obvious ones. A, quality. 2, natural and sustainable. And 3, listening to the customers. So constant improvement of your product or your service, So, and by quality, I just don't mean just the quality of the product, the quality of the product, the quality of the packaging, as we were talking about, the image on the packaging, so how it looks, the quality of your photographs, the quality of your video. So the whole story needs to be quality. Natural and sustainable, because, that is going to get you a product. So you will not take any shortcuts. That will be long term. You will also get better value from the consumer. Consumer wants to pay a little more for natural and sustainable, and younger generation does not want to buy polluting plastics or things like that. So that would be a focus as well. And listening to customers, because you can never be perfect. So you constantly need to build a team and a mechanism to listen to the customer, the reviews, and constantly challenge yourself, improve. I think those 3 would be my top 3.
Cool. Dwanil, same question.
I think agree with everything that Deepak has said, but I would say one is just focus on brand from the day one, right? I can't overemphasize how important it is to start thinking like, think from a brand first perspective down to your product, and what is the larger play that you're building out for the consumers in that segment. The second one I would say is speed. Operating in a digital environment allows you to move very fast. And so like Deepak mentioned earlier, you can list in a day. I mean, you can even send like 12 units via an air shipment, right? I mean, I'm not, just to test something. So I would say be extremely fast and iterative with, say, products or concepts. I think that is very, very important. And I would say lastly is that just be completely sort of open-minded in receiving feedback. Again, this is similar to what Deepak is saying, but sometimes people don't want to hear something bad about their product or their business, and they feel like that I think is a big barrier that one should not have. Be super open to like any sort of feedback that comes in for the consumer. Welcome it, and again, coming back to my second point, change quickly. I would say these would be the things that I would suggest for especially smaller businesses. Use your size to your advantage.
Thank you. So with that, we come to the end of our fireside chat session. I would once again like to thank Deepak and Dwanil for sharing their insights from their export journey. I would also like to thank all the people who have joined us digitally today. I'm sure this session leaves you with a lot of knowledge and insights to ponder over. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.